Let's talk about using the help in Mathematica. There are a number of ways that you can access the help. The simplest will be to click on Help in the toolbar, and then Wolfram Documentation, and then you'll be able to search for whatever term you want to know about. Let's go ahead and look up the plot command. So let's say I want to plot a function. Type in plot, hit enter, and here are all of the results that come up. Typically, the first thing, if that's the actual name of the command, click on that, it'll take you to it. Now there's another way that I can get right to the help for this command. If I know what the name of the command is from this main screen, I can just type plot with the capital P, exactly as you would call that command in Mathematica, hit enter, and it'll take you directly to that entry in the help. If you're not sure what you're looking for, just type it in up there. You don't have to worry about the capitalization. But if you want to save a couple of clicks, then just type it in with the capital letter and it'll take you right here. And then once you're looking at the help, you'll notice the basic description comes first. So this is the minimum amount of information that you need to give Mathematica in order to call that command. You'll have the plot command followed by the left bracket, then the function, comma, and then in braces you'll have the variable name, the independent variable name, x typically, and then a comma, the smallest x value, the largest x value, close the braces, close the brackets. Now beyond that, you can have many different options that you add to that command. You can also plot several different functions. If you want to plot multiple functions over the same x region, then you can do that in a single plot command. If you need to do something custom and special with each of the different functions, then there are other ways that you can plot them separately and then put them together, but that's for another video. To plot multiple functions, it's saying that you're going to type in plot, left bracket, left brace, and then list out all of the functions you want to plot, close off that first set of braces, comma, and then in braces the name of the independent variable, again typically x, then the x min, x max, these will be actual numbers, and then close off the braces, close off the bracket for the main command. Now inside of the help, this basic outline will be somewhat useful, but they'll also give you examples. So for instance here, in all of the help you'll see these basic examples, and it'll give you a function that's being plotted with that command. And then what they do next, so they'll typically have one that illustrates what you would do to call the command using the least number of inputs necessary for that. But then they'll also show you some other examples, and these may or may not be useful. You can see, okay, well, this is how I get filling if I want to fill from the graph down to the bottom of what's being displayed, the x-axis. If that's where the intersection happens, if this is 0, 0, then we're filling down to the x-axis. You can fill in the area between two plots. That is going to be helpful later on in this course, but in general these examples may or may not be useful for you, but you can look through and see what applies to your situation. Now sometimes you need a little bit more detail about how the command is called, and so expanding this details and options will tell you everything you want to know about that command. One of the more useful pieces of information under that details and options is it will go ahead and list all of the different plot options, or all the different options that you can use in that command. And let's talk about what those are, and then we'll come back to this. Let me minimize that again. I'm going to come down here, and an example of an option, I guess we can just look right here, this filling to bottom. That's an example of an option. It's filling in down there, it's taking that basic plot and it's adding something a little bit more on top of it. If you go down here, you can expand all of these. Expanding options lists out some of them. It's not going to list everything, but it'll show you the most common ones. Let's expand axes right here. And so you can turn off the axes with, after the x range, doing another comma and then axes arrow false. You can turn off just one of the axes and not the other. And you'll notice that they give you examples of using these things. They don't really explain exactly what's going on. It's left up to you to kind of figure it out. So in this axes false true, you can see, okay, well, it's showing me the y-axis but not the x. And so this false here applies to the x-axis. The true probably applies to the y. I'm putting those in braces because these both are axes options, so I don't have a separate axes arrow for the x and axes arrow for the y. You just have axes arrow and then list everything out. So you need to look over it and play around with things, try to figure out exactly what's going on there. Again, they don't always tell you exactly how to call that command. But if you come up here under Details and Options, if there is something you need to know a little bit more about, you could go to that. This will list out all of the different options that you can use. And if the command that you're using uses most of the same options as another sort of more general command, then it'll point you to that one. So for instance, graphics here. And it's going through and telling you what all of the differences are between plot and graphics. So if you want to know more generally which options you can call, then you'll click on graphics and then expand Details and Options there. Scroll up and do that. And now here we see the full listing of everything that can be used. You can see that there are a lot of options. If you need to know about any one of those, then you can click on its help. Let's go and find axes here again. And since that one was special or used differently in plot, I'm going to click back, and then we're back in plot here. Let's click on axes, and it'll take us to the help for that. And here, hopefully, we can get a little more in the way of detail about how to call that command. And you can see here it goes ahead and explains what that true-false means. So it may take some clicking around. You may have to go to the help entry for that specific plot option that you're using in order to see the full details of what it can do. Let me go back to just plot again, and let's scroll down. Click Open Options down here, and it'll go through and list out some of the more common options that you would be calling. And inside each of those, you're going to see an example. So for instance, under Mesh, we can see these, and that's maybe not one that we would use in the two-dimensional. Let's look up something else. We already saw some filling options. Let's go up to Axes Origin. That's one that's often used. The default is going to be automatic, so Mathematica will determine where to put it. But if you want to shift things around and put the Axes Origin at a specific point, for instance here, they're setting it to be at 1, 2. So this intersection right here is at 1, 2 instead of, say, 0, 0, like we see over here. Oftentimes, you will be using Axes Origin to set the Axes Origin to 0, 0. If 0, 0 doesn't fall inside of the range of values over which you're plotting, then Mathematica will make a decision about where to put it. It won't automatically just show 0, 0. And so you can use that if you want to make sure that you're seeing the origin and not getting confused about where the graph, say, crosses the x-axis, making sure that the x-axis actually passes through 0, 0. Another common command that's used is the plot range command, and that will allow you to adjust the Y range that's being displayed. We can have this, so if you want it to be nice and symmetric, I actually didn't realize that until I looked at this. You just say plot range 2, and it'll assume that you want to go from -2 to +2. You can also specify a particular interval of Y values, and you'll notice here they're not really showing those. So full automatic, those are the typical looks that you'll see. Plot range 2, that's useful. But what if I want it to go from, say, -1 to 3? How do I do that? Well, I can take that 2, and I'm going to replace it with, in braces, -1, 3, close off the braces. And now if I hit Shift-Enter, we'll see that going from -1 to 3. It's not displaying anything on the X side there, but it is changing the Y. So it made a decision about which X's to show. If I wanted to force it to go from -5 to 5, I could add some other options in here. And you'll notice what I just did. I took their example in the help, and I changed something right there, and then hit Shift-Enter. All of the examples that you see in the help are going to be live. You can change it and see, okay, what does changing that option do in terms of the output? What does it change in the graph or the result I'm getting from that command? And so you can make changes there, and if you mess something up, then it's not going to save it. So if I move around in the plot, let's say I go back to the main screen, let's type in plot. Again, we'll go back to that same entry. So scroll down here under options, and then I'm going to the plot range right here. And you'll notice it's back to just plot range arrow 2. It didn't save that -1 to 3 and braces that I put in there. So you don't have to worry about messing something up inside of the help. If you change it and you don't like the way it looks and you want to go back to their example, then just get out of that particular help page and then go back to it, and it'll revert back to whatever was programmed into the help originally. But this is a nice feature that you can change things in here and sort of experiment, play around, and then once you have something that's working the way that you want it to, you can take that and copy and paste it back over into your regular document. So I can just take this command here, I can copy and paste and put it back over in my original file. So let's say I want to take that, put it back in here, and now I've got that plot. So being comfortable with the help is going to be very important as you're going through the assignments. You'll need to go through, look things up. And so just, again, click on Help, Wolfram Documentation, and there you are. Let's say I want to know about, I don't know, sine. I could type in the word sine or just leave off the E, use the standard abbreviation, and it goes through, shows us some things about sine. I can click on that for the function. Again, it shows us how to evaluate it. Gives us some other examples, a plot, a series, just evaluating it at a radian value, at a degree value. And hopefully one of those examples somewhere in the help will show us what we want to do. And be sure you look down, expand some of these others. Down here they'll show you a scope, which can be useful. So if I want a numerical approximation, it's giving me a couple of ways to do that. Some other applications where you could use that. Again, you may have to click around a little bit. And one other feature of the help that's going to be very useful, the See Also. Let's say I want to know about inverse sine instead. So I go under sine, thinking maybe they'll talk about it there. Maybe there's like a -1 exponent sort of thing you can add, but that doesn't show up. But down here under See Also, we see arcsine, we see cosine, we see tangent, cosecant, so some of these related trig functions. It's not displaying everything, but the See Also can lead you to related commands that may do what you want it to do. For instance, let's maybe go back to plot, might be a better example. Go to plot, and if you realize, okay, well this isn't quite what I wanted to do, I've got a different type of function. Maybe you wanted to plot specific points, that's discrete plot, parametric plot if you have parametric equations. Contour plot is very useful if you're plotting implicit curves, which we'll be doing later on in the semester. Maybe you want to plot a three-dimensional function instead of a two-dimensional, and you're trying to use just regular plot, and down here you see, oh, there's a plot 3D. Let me click on that instead, and that will let me plot a three-dimensional function. So be sure to scroll down and look at the See Also list. That may help point you in the direction of a command that's similar to the one that you're looking at, which may do what you want it to do or do it better.